It is 6 o'clock. I will call the April 26, 2022 meeting of the Wythe County Board of Supervisors to order. This evening we have Pastor Steve Knupp from the Fort Chisel Church of Christ to provide an invocation. If you would, please stand and remain standing for the pledge.
Let's all bow together. Our God, our Father, who art in heaven, how great is thy most high and most holy name. You are the everlasting God of heaven, the God before whom we humbly bow. And we offer at this time our thanksgiving unto you for the many blessings of this life, how abundantly you bless us each and every day. And we're thankful for this time in which, as leaders of this community, that we can assemble here together. We pray your blessings upon those who serve in this capacity. We know in your word you have told us that we are to honor them, we are to pray for them, to submit to them. And tonight especially, we're mindful. We pray that you will give them the wisdom they need, wisdom according to your word, as they lead and serve in this community. Give them the courage that they may carry out those things that are needful for the people of Wythe County. We're so thankful for them and for their time and their dedication. And we're mindful of many others who serve in other capacities. We're mindful of our policemen, our firemen, our first responders, for those who put their lives on the line every single day. And we ask our Heavenly Father that you watch over them, providentially care for them, keep them safe, allow them that they may come home safely to their families each night. We pray that you'll be here with us in this meeting tonight, that those things discussed will be for the benefit of this area, for the benefit of the citizens. And as always, our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this great nation in which we live, for our freedoms, the ability to live our lives as we do, to freely work and worship and serve in every way. And we pray that the freedoms we enjoy may continue well into the future. And we pray that you'll continue to bless our nation, have mercy on us when we stray from the path of righteousness. We know there are many abominations that are being put forth in our land today through those in authority, and we pray for them, and we pray those things might not come to pass. But be here with us tonight in all that we do, and we pray that you're always glorified. All these favors, all these blessings, we now ask in the name of your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ, and amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on the agenda is always the citizens' time. I'll call you up to the podium. You do have 3 minutes to speak. First person we have signed up is Mr. Jerry Blevins.
Approximately mid-morning of February 15, 2022, I stopped by the Wythe County Department of Social Services to complain about a long-standing problem with my neighbor. The lady with Social Services was very nice and even brought in another lady to listen to my complaint. We were almost finished when all of a sudden 4 or 5 Wythe County deputies came in the door without knocking and told the Department of Social Service lady to leave. The deputies then told me to leave, that I wasn't welcome there. At this point, the DSS lady tried to come back in but was told to leave again. The DSS lady was very concerned about the situation and told me that she didn't call the police. After the police told me to leave, I then went home. After going home, after I'd been there for a short time, one of my dogs started barking. I noticed through a garage window someone in the tree line near the garage with a long gun. At this time, I went to the front of my garage and fired a shot in the parking lot away from the intruder, and then got into my car and traveled down to my lower driveway where I could get a better look at the intruder. I called the 911 operator and reported an intruder on my property. Whereas the 911 operator replied, "It's not an intruder, but it's the sheriff's department, and they are there to talk with me." I talked at length with the 911 operator about why the sheriff's department would be on my property. period, let alone to talk to me. I knew I wasn't involved in any crime, and the only thing I could think of was that it was something to do with my visit to DSS that morning. DSS and elected police have got to investigate all complaints. And doing that, I was concerned my DS complaint would cost me my life, and even told the DSS lady that, being very concerned that my life was in imminent danger, and so related this to the 911 operator, to which she replied that all deputies carried body cams. However, since the deputies had arrived immediately after my complaint to DSS with long guns, sneaking up the back way to the tree line and not attempting to identify themselves as their presence, even after I fired a shot, told me that they were attempting to take me out. In the Wythe Enterprise newspaper, Saturday, March 5th edition, it states that the police shot one of the dogs while taking cover. This is not true because I would have heard the shot had it been true. The dog was shot, however, but it was apparent during the search of my property. The dog is not a vicious animal, and if it was shot, it was intentional. Had my dogs been vicious, they would have attacked upon initial contact with the deputies. Malice was further shown by not getting medical attention for the dog that was shot. Most of the 911 call was about my security because I knew if I got out of my car, I would be shot, and in no time did I threaten to shoot the police. That is a lie stating I did. Finally, I was arrested and taken for a mental exam at the hospital, but turned up nothing beyond what was already known. After being falsely accused and arrested, I spent 10 days in jail and then released. When I finally got home, I found my male dog nearly dead and starved to the point he was eating plastic and pine needles. 2 state police officers dropped by the jail and told me they would feed the dogs. The adult female and puppies appeared to have been fed, but the male dog who had initially warned me of the police presence had not been fed. Police malice was further shown when I asked one of the deputies what was going on after my arrest, and he replied, "Oh, shut the F blank 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 up." A few days ago, I met with your county administrator, Mr. Stephen Barr, and his assistant to ask for help to obtain a paper copy of my 911 call, 15th of February 2022. After a formal FOIA request on 17/2022, the 911 call center did finally mail me a police timeline of the incident involving me, but no 911 call results. At this time, I asked Mr. Barr to please tell the board supervisors what the result of his investigation into my 911 call and what's being done to get an original copy of my 911 call made February 15th, 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blevins. Next person signed up is Mr. Zach Lester.
Good afternoon, board. Thank you all for what you do. I'm just going to try to start bringing up some topics for all of us to talk about. A lot of the meetings I go to are just kind of the same old thing where we talk such minor details in a time where we're losing absolute control of our country. So I'm going to read a few quotes. I'm going to give a few talking points, but thank you guys for all that you do and your commitment to our community. I think myself that we have more machinery of government than is necessary. Too many parasites living on the labor of the industrious. Government too big enough to supply everything you need is big enough to take everything you have. The course of history shows that as government grows, liberty decreases. The two enemies of the people are criminals and government. So let us tie the second down with the chains of the Constitution so the second will not become the legalized version of the first. That is Thomas Jefferson. What a good guy. All right, so the second one. If ye love wealth better than liberty, the tranquility of servitude better than the animating contest of freedom, go home from us in peace. We ask not your counsels or arms. Crouch down and lick the hands which feed you. May your chains set lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that ye were our countrymen. That was Samuel Adams. These guys formed our country over 3% tax. Today, my generation, I'm sure you all understand too, I pay 51% of my income goes to my government. To do what? To regulate me for fish that I catch. I have to have a license to fish. I have to have a license to hunt. I have to have a license to drive, to get the license to fish, to feed myself. I have to have a license to get a job, a license to be certified to open a business, to feed for myself. I have to have a license to get married. I have to have the government's permission to do everything in my life. We are all slaves to the establishment, and it's through our consent and through our ignorance. They've done this by the book legally instead of lawfully, through syntax and grammar. The Act of 1871, look into it, it's when they changed our Constitution to the incorporation of the United States. 1913, when we initiated the Federal Reserve, gave our wealth away to a debt note, credit debt system. That's when we gave our economy away. one of our founding, I think it was Thomas Jefferson, said that whenever we lose our currency, we lose our country. And you think our debt notes, if I have $50,000 in the bank, that's just $50,000 I have to pay taxes on. Our tax system is set up so that if I use their currency, I have to pay an interest rate on all of that. It's how the IRS works. It's all fraudulent. We just had the 2020 election stolen from us. There's a movie coming out this week. It's called 2,000 Mules by Dinesh D'Souza. He's actually going to be on our show Friday. But he goes over the undeniable evidence, video evidence of how the 2020 election was stolen. There are 2,000 people that smuggled ballot after ballot after ballot to the drop boxes. So check that out. We're talking fraudulent election, fraudulent tax system. And the last quote is, "It does not take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men." So guys, I'm just going to keep bringing up topics to try to get everybody inspired. I love you all. Keep doing good work. Thank you all for what you do, okay?
Thank you, Mr. West.
Thank you.
Next person signed up is Miss Amanda Baines. Miss Baines?
Good evening, guys. Thank you for being here. The topic that I want to discuss today, I've been up since 4 o'clock this morning in anticipation of coming and speaking in front of you guys. I don't do well speaking in front of people, so if I mess up, just give me a moment and I'll continue. I got up at 4 o'clock this morning with the idea of writing something to you guys, and didn't get but a very few sentences down, but I would like to read what I wrote. Accountability. It is the fact or condition of being accountable, responsible, accountable of a person, organization, or institution required or expected to justify actions or decisions. The importance of accountability means being responsible for the decisions that are being made and taken. Accountability is the main element in leadership. Accountability builds up trust, improves performance, promotes ownership, and inspires confidence. It is all about being reliable and having clear standards. Also, it is about communication and asking questions to make sure the task or whatever is being done at hand is being completed to comply with standards. On May the 5th of last year, I was grocery shopping. I was surrounded by 5 or 6 cops in the local social services with an affidavit to remove my 1-year-old from my care. After the initial shock of dealing with my son's removal, I sat down and had a chance to read the affidavit that was presented to the courts. Immediately, I knew something was wrong. There were falsifications, there were misrepresentations of facts, there was changing of stories to go with their plot and not what the actual truth was. Upon finding all of this out, I started making complaints to supervisors, the director. I've even been in front of the board, the DSS Board of Social Services, through a couple of emails with Miss Patty O'Quinn, I believe her name is. The response back that I got from her was that when I had a valid complaint, then they would listen. I have been called crazy for coming and standing in front of you people to fight for my children. I'm not crazy. I am a traumatized mother that wants her children back home with her, and that's all I am. For 3 years, I have fought these people tooth and nail. And when I go in front of the court system, I'm labeled as aggressive. Who would not be aggressive when it comes to their children? I'm not aggressive. I just want my babies back home with me, and I want someone to listen to me. All I am asking for is help. And everywhere I have turned, I have been turned down. I'm not perfect. I have made mistakes in raising my children. I will admit that. I will accept accountability. But it's what we learn from those mistakes. These people are supposed to help us learn from those mistakes and strengthen the family bonds. And all that they have done is wore me down. They have taken that family bond that I once had with my children, and they have destroyed it. And that is all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Baines.
Thank you.
So all the citizens we have signed up, I'll close citizens' time. Move on to, in the agenda, the next item is a public hearing for proposed water rates change. Mr. Bear?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, what is advertised is a public hearing for a water rate change, as is in the package and Kyle put it on the board. Changing to a proposed rate system based on AWWA basis of meter equivalent. The current residential and commercial base rate is $20.79. The proposed base rate going forward for the residential is $20.79. The rate for commercial is $20.79, but that rate is multiplied by a factor based on the meter size that is in there. So the base rate for commercial will change based on the meter size. The current rate for 1,000 gallons is $10.40 for residential, for volume rate, and commercial $10.40. The proposed rate that we're proposing is a volume rate of $10.40 for residential and $11.40 for commercial. You all have obviously set through several meetings and time as we've gone over these in the past. That is a general summary of the information. I'd be glad to answer any questions or explain anything further that the board may have.
That was set for a public hearing. We did not have anybody sign up to speak to the rate change. So I'll close the public hearing part of it. I think the important part to note is that there's no change on the residential rates. That's correct.
No change on the residential base rate. The volume rate does make a change at currently the base rate includes 1,000 gallons, but the proposal, the first gallon used does start getting charged based on the volume rate.
I'll open the floor up for any questions or discussion.
So, Mr. Bear, on the commercial rate, that does not include Progress Park, correct?
That is correct. The commercial rate, Progress Park is within the town of Wytheville service area, so it does not.
Thank you, sir.
Is there any more questions or comments?
Make a motion, we accept the new rate as proposed here in the document.
All right, I have a motion that we adopt the rates as advertised, and that would be effective July 1st, correct?
Yes, sir.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Cook, I have a second by Mr. Smith. Is there any questions or discussion?
Chair, to your statement, you said that it's not going up, but actually, if they use less than 1,000 gallons, their bill's gonna go up basically $10.40.
If they use,
If they use 1,000 gallons.
If they use more than 1,000 gallons, right?
if they
No.
use more than.
It-
No.
Basically, it's
No.
gonna go up by the multiplier effect of however many gallons they use. So that first 1,000 gallons, yes, it will be, they will be paying for that 1,000 gallons. Everybody will be. Currently, the base rate includes 1,000 gallons. The base rate now would just be the flat base rate, and then everybody gets billed off of the volume that they use. So if they use 100 gallons, they're gonna be paying $2.08, 10% of $27. If they use 1,000 gallons, they're gonna be, or, I'm sorry, the 10.40, they're gonna be paying $1.04 on top of the base rate. If they use 1,000 gallons, they're gonna be paying 10.40.
But the base rate of, and we've had this discussion before, depending on where you live in the county, is what citizens think about
Yeah.
county water. Obviously, on my end of the county, a lot of people don't want the county water, but they do pay the minimum rate because part of the county water program is they do get fire hydrants with the 1,000 feet. So those people, it wouldn't affect.
Correct.
All right, do we have any more questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote with Mr. Terry.
No.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved. Next item on the agenda is our payment of invoices. Each board member has received in their package all the invoices for the month. Is there any invoice that any board member would like to pull out? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to pay the invoices as presented.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Terry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Lawson. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Cook?
Aye.
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 So approved. Next item on the agenda is the minutes of our previous meeting from April the 12th, 2022. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Cook. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Terry. Is there any corrections or additions to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain, since I wasn't here.
All right, so approved. Next item on the agenda is old business. Mr. Baird, do we have anything under old business?
Don't have anything on the agenda. We'll mention, and we'll make certain it's on the next agenda as well. We still have a vacancy for the Wytheville Community College Board to be considering. We can put information out on our website or social media sites if so interested, just to let people know, but we still have that vacancy to fill.
Do we have any other vacancies on?
We've got at least one on the Apex Authority Board, and do we still have one vacancy on Mount Rogers, or we still have one on Mount Rogers? We'll confirm that.
On,
Planning
I
District.
thought we appointed,
We appointed Mr. Moore,
But
but
we still got one,
I think
okay.
there is one vacancy there. We'll confirm.
that's right. Yeah, if you get a list of those and have, Ms. Bell put those out, see if we can get any interest. Anything else under old business?
I do not have anything, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hankins, do you have anything? Move on to reports. First one's the treasurer report. Ms. Quinn?
Good evening. I'll step on that and fall. I know what'll happen. Okay, well, it's been an exciting time around here lately, as you all very well know. I should have left it where it was at. I will begin with the financial report that was in your packet for the month of March, or ending March 31st. In the consolidated account, we had a balance of $91,109,499. And just to note, that increase was because Mr. Bayer had 2 bond closings in the month of March that affected that number, which we're getting ready to transfer some funds around, things like that, and start using those funds that we closed on, so you'll start seeing some changes there. But within that balance, the general fund had a balance of $50,586,041. So those bond closings, of course, the most significant one was the school construction fund, which was a little over $12 million, so that really is what changed our numbers there. So that's all that I have on that side, other than we've talked the last time or two that I was here about meals tax collections and things like that. Not sure if you all are aware, but we had a couple of restaurants that, from my understanding, the state fire marshal had come in and cited them for not having a hood in their kitchen, and they've had to quit serving food. I don't know what the status is of all that at this point, But just to let you know, there are a couple of businesses outside of the ones that closed. There are a couple businesses that will affect going forward with mills tax until they are under compliance. So they're not our big supporters or our big contributors like McDonald's are and the Burger Kings, but these are our mom and pop restaurants that we all enjoy eating at just as much and contribute just as much to the community and to the county as those larger facilities do. At least we know who owns them, and most of the time we know all their family too, instead of just knowing the employees that work there, not knowing the owners. But keep that in mind. I think a lot of those businesses are in the same general area of the county, so if there's anything that I'll say the board or county administration maybe can do to move anything along with those inspections to help those people out, I'm sure they would greatly appreciate it. Any questions on the financial report?
Not the financial report, but what you just hit on with the restaurants. Do you know, are those restaurants, are they attempting to, I guess, install whatever they need to install?
One has
stateside?
closed. I think one is trying to, and the other one, I haven't really heard any follow-up information on them to know exactly what's going on with them. But they're all in a, I don't know, 3-4 mile stretch maybe on the same road, so. But they're all between Wytheville to Speedwell, so. And the only reason I knew about that, my nephew has to have a hot dog every day from Speedwell Market. And he went in one day and he's only 5 years old and he was highly disappointed because they couldn't serve him a hot dog. So, but my brother was telling me he was talking to Ms. Huffman and she was telling him what was going on. So that's the only information that I have from there. So, but like I said, I'm sure they would appreciate the help and the support. And I know the people in those general areas that, like to go down there, whether it's to get a hot dog or a hamburger or just to get a, stand around at the deli to talk. I'm sure they would appreciate the support, so.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, just one item, and it's on page 105 of your agenda. Just one area that I do encourage us to just watch and see where it goes. March is typically a drop in our sales and use tax, but we took a dramatic drop, and as you can see from the chart, we have been running substantially above of previous years. So we dropped down basically to matching last year's numbers and below 2020's numbers. So just interested in watching that one from a macro sense to see if that's the beginning of a slowdown on the sales and use tax across the board, or if we get a jump in numbers and maybe something didn't get reported to the state next month. So just.
Or maybe people can't afford gas to go to the store.
It's,
Postal Service will deliver Amazon.
You don't
I don't
have
wanna
to tell me
talk-
that. Trust me.
I don't want to talk recessionary talk, but these are the type of things when sales and use taxes start dropping, and it's just 1 month here to look at. It's typically, like you said, people aren't, whether it's they don't have the fund to go out and spend on these things or whatever. I'm curious to see if it shows a slowdown that's occurring in our local economy.
And kind of along that line, the next page, which for you all I guess would be 106, you'll notice that the occupancy tax or the lodging tax, of course, we're slowly seeing the steady increase there, but that mills tax, all of those things relate back to the sales and use tax. So sales and use tax is pretty much a guaranteed amount that you know is going to come in. So, or not a guaranteed amount, but a guaranteed tax that you know you're going to be getting every month from the state. So everything else is always fluctuating. So, anything else, Mr. Bayer, on
No,
that? Okay.
just want to bring that thing.
Okay. As I had mentioned at the last meeting that I was at back at the end of March, we sent out the delinquent notices for real estate and personal property. So that started out with a bang and has kind of been pretty steady. With this being the end of the month, I'm sure it's going to be busy the rest of this week. Next week, we will be putting the stops on at DMV, or the DMV holds. We'll probably load those or upload that file to DMV on Wednesday, just to allow the mail to come through, because the 30th does fall on Sunday. So I'm giving everybody at least Monday, the mail through Tuesday, before we see what we still have outstanding to upload that file. So we're getting ready to start that, which sadly it occurs, but that does affect collections a lot, because when people can't renew their tags, then they come to pay taxes. Town of Wytheville participates in the program as well. So a lot of times we're getting blamed for holds that Town of Wytheville has when DMV has sent the person to our office, and then we have to send them to the town, and by the time they get over there, they're more mad than they were to start with. So, but we'll start that up. We start issuing warrants in debt today to also increase collections. I want to start working on a lot of the concentrated taxes like mobile homes, the business-related taxes like business personal property. We have some of those that are outstanding, and I just feel like it's by choice of just not paying. It's not because people have forgotten, but those amounts can add up very quickly as well. So staying along the taxes, I wanted to give you an update going back to the 2020 tax year, which would be the tax that was billed out in October of 2020. So as of March 31st, our overall collections between real estate and personal property combined were at 98.3%. And that's just on 2020, which is based on what was billed, not what we have in the budget, but what we bill out. For 2021, which through March, this number I feel like is a really great number as well, but real estate and personal property combined is at 93.5%, which the real estate's the higher collection rate. Personal property is kind of a struggle to collect, but then that's why we have to implement the other collection measures to collect on those. But just want to give you an idea of where we are for the past 2 years. I was going to go back further, but actually when working on this, I discovered a little hiccup that I've worked with Mrs. Williams on, so we're going to work to get that resolved, so I'll be able to update you a little bit better going forward on some numbers. We had a few audit things that affected some accounts that we didn't realize they affected directly, so we'll work on that and get that corrected. But in my rambling, that is all that I have tonight. I feel like I came up here unprepared, but I knew what I was doing when I came, but I just don't seem to be too prepared at the moment. Anybody have any questions on anything or anything going on with our office or along that line?
Anybody have anything for Ms. Glenn?
Okay.
I will tell you the other night at the NRA banquet, when I went to pay my bill, of course, you got Mr. Crockett and the
Did you
town
feel like you were being
treasurer.
bombarded? Had Mike and Sam
Yeah,
both?
Mike's up there with Sam, and the guy gave it to him, and all of a sudden I hear one of them go, "Don't forget the sales tax." I said, "Leave it to you two."
Well, we did talk about, in order to increase what we would get from that a few times during the live auction part, we did think about trying to bid against you, but we were afraid we would end up being the last man standing, and you would stick us instead of us sticking you, so. All in fun.
I've been known to do that when somebody does that.
I think we all have at some point, so.
Well,
Okay, thank you
ma'am.
all.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner, Ms. Vaught. I know you're always itching to get up here and speak.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
I just want to give you an update on the reassessment. The notices were finally mailed out today. There is a reassessment book in my office, and there's also one in Mo's office that has all the values, the new values for every property in the county. There will be a PDF that's in alphabetical and in map number order put on the website. I don't think it's on there yet, but it will be put up. The hearings will only be taken by email or mail. The last day to appeal, to send in an appeal will be Friday, May the 20th. There's a number to, if you all want to write this down, if anybody asks you, the reassessment office number is 276-223-4142. They have an email that is up and running. It is Wythe County, spelled out, 2022@gmail.com. Anybody have any questions about that? I do
Mr.
have,
Mayor,
I do have a figure of the total taxable parcels. The land is 1,068,621,000. Improvements are 2,083,069,800, for a total of 3,151,690,800. Those are the new figures for this year. In my land book last year, it was 2,368,114,000. I've got, wait a minute, my millions and my billions are messed up. 2,368,114,217. That is an increase of $783 million from last year on the values. Does anybody have any questions about that?
I don't have any questions about that. Mr. Barrett, this reassessment, the hearing. Now, first, they told us they were gonna do them virtual because of COVID. Now, everybody knows for whatever reason, COVID mysteriously disappeared. They've done some kind of spell and they shoot it off. You know. Now they're saying that you can only do it by email or call them this phone number.
Yeah.
I don't like this. The people have a right to be heard. You know, we hired them to do a job, which included hearing these people.
I don't disagree. I don't
And
like
just,
it on virtual. Yeah.
just to go on record, this has nothing to do with Ms. Law.
Yeah.
This is a company that we put out bids, we solicited bids, and we hired. And maybe we weren't thorough enough because every reassessment I've ever been a part of, not on the board, but as a property owner in Wythe County, I've had a right to go sit face to face, and I don't want to call him an accuser, with the reassessor and plead my case of why I didn't. This is wrong.
I'll agree. I'm on the same train, sir.
And I'll add, 10 days is pathetic in a timeframe.
Yes.
10 days is very
Everybody's not
pathetic.
gonna get their notice by the end of this week.
10 days is very pathetic when we gave them a 90-day extension.
Yes.
They're giving our citizens less time than we gave them extra time.
Yep. Yeah, this is, no, this isn't right.
And I know it only happened 6 years, and God forbid I'm on this board next time we do it, but
Yeah, the contract, lesson learned, the contract needs to clearly state that it will be in-person, appointments, not phone appointments or Zoom
well,
appointments.
before COVID, there was no such thing as virtual.
Yeah.
Now they're just using their advantage, and they went from virtual to a Gmail address.
I have argued, they have indicated they have done it for the last couple of years like that in all the locations. They have been doing the reassessments. And they're still taking everyone's concerns, they're still talking to everyone about it, but they are not doing it in person. And I do not like it.
Do we have any recourse, Mr. Mayor?
I do not know of any recourse that we have on it. Mr. Farley and I can talk to them again about it and make certain, but,
Can we at least get the time frame stretched out?
Well, they've already mailed out the notice with those
I mean,
dates.
10 days.
Yeah, but you got 10 days for 29,000 people.
Trying to get through, most
Trying
of
to
them are.
get
well,
through.
and that's to set your appointment.
That's to set the
Not to be
appointment. That
heard,
doesn't
period.
mean
So
that
they
they'll
may take 2
decide.
months to do all of it, but that's to set the appointment when it's received.
I think even 10 days, you know, majority of people are going to use, you know, a phone as a Gmail account.
Well,
It's gonna be really tough for them to even get through, you know.
So is it 10 days from the date you mailed, the notices got mailed, or when you received?
It would be, it says the appeal must be received no later than Friday, May 20th. So if you mail it today, you've got, what, at least 3 weeks.
Depending on how long it takes to do it.
Yeah, May 20th was the deadline.
Right, that's the last date. But, I mean, they would take calls and emails until then. But that doesn't mean that, you know, they wouldn't hear it past then. I'm sure they can't do everybody's in that time frame. But that's the last date they've given, so.
And they have provided a PDF in alphabetical order and a PDF by map number that we will put on our website to also assist the citizens of looking at property values. So I can go in and find my property value that's on there. Obviously, I got the mailing, but I can also go in and look on it by map number. And that way I can look at all those that are around me to see if everyone appears to be getting assessed in a similar format. So that will be posted on our website, probably as early as tomorrow on it. But Mr. Farthing and I will follow up with Juan Fernandez and just concede, make certain there's nothing we can do to get any in-person hearings.
Well, I mean, it's just bad business, you know, and maybe it's common sense that, you know, we thought they would meet with the citizens in person, and maybe it's our fault for not using an even finer tooth legal comb to go through the contract, but.
It's always done that way.
I've never heard of a reassessment that didn't offer that.
Well, not everyone has the option to do virtual. Not everyone has a phone, not everyone has a computer. And we have a lot of people in our community that they don't have internet. I mean,
Tell them not to list us as a reference. Yeah. So, of course, there's another board member mentioned the other week, somebody told them that, they understood that, board members didn't pay taxes, and I'm a little upset. You or Miss Gwen must have missed that memo, because I get a bill every year. I didn't know that was,
that would be
I didn't,
nice.
was one of those benefits. I didn't know.
You didn't know that was an option,
We
did
didn't
you?
know we had that first.
That's okay. They've been sending me bills for the last, 12 or 13 years, so evidently I didn't know either.
Yeah.
Now, I'll give you an update on the Board of Equalization will be having in-person hearings. That's the members from the county. They are set to be sworn in before the judge on May 3rd, and then their hearings will take place 45 days after the first set of hearings are over. I would also like to give you an update on our new Vision software. As you know, we've had some problems with that. We have gotten the image numbers that were where the deeds are scanned into the computer were not showing up on the cards. They're there now. I did the end of the year rollover this evening before I came. That is where all the proposed values are now the current values that are the reassessment values. That worked, they're there. So Brandon and Todd will work with the mapper tomorrow to get those values and the cards back up on the website, which a lot of people have been missing. So that should happen tomorrow, hopefully, if everything with that goes right. Does anybody have any questions about anything that?
I appreciate everybody's work on this, but especially the last little bit on Vision to finalize the problems that we had, to get zip codes in place, to get some of the final values in place, and then her doing this rollover and confirming that everything looks good on it. And image numbers may not sound like a lot to you all, but it's a a huge deal to staff. It's a huge deal to, I think, a lot of people that
The
use this,
realtors
like
especially.
Realtors and everything.
Mhm.
And the data was there. It was just a matter of getting the system to talk to each other. So it's, the last few days have been very good days, and thanks to IT and to Kathy and her staff and everything for getting that wrapped up. So appreciate it.
Anybody got any questions?
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank y'all.
I'll be looking forward to that in the mail. All right, next. Yeah. Next reports from the sheriff. Chief Deputy Klein.
Nothing to report.
I will say Sheriff Foster was, went to Richmond today. Lieutenant Street, who does the victim witness, received an award from Jason Mieres' office for some work he done on a victim. So if you see Harry out and about, tell him congratulations. Moving on the agenda to new business, we have the consent calendar. Excuse me. Everybody received a copy of that in your board package. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented. Have a motion by Mr. Cook. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Supervisor Smith. Is there any questions or discussion on the consent calendar? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote with Mr. Terry.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved. Next item on new business is our CSA request for additional funding. Ms. Ayers?
Well, I'm not Miss Ayers,
Oh.
I don't say, you don't look the
But, uh,
same.
but, good evening, ladies
Trying to
and
find
gentlemen.
my spot in the package, and I looked up, and I was,
Yeah, it's, yeah, that's a, yeah, my being Miss Ayers will never work.
Don't use the eject button.
The Wythe County Department of Social Services has submitted a local request in the amount of $195,815 for local Children's Services Act match for projected expenditures through the remainder of the fiscal year. Currently, we are serving 52 youth. 19 of those are special education private day placements. 18 of those are at Minnick. One is at Blue Ridge Autism Center in Roanoke. There are 3 youth in residential placement through parental agreements with the Community Services Board. We have 5 fostering futures youth, and the remainder are foster children in various other placements. We have 6 of the foster children are in residential placements. Residential placements, as you all who know about Children's Services Act know, is a substantially higher local match rate, almost something like 33.9% as opposed to 27.8% that is paid for the majority of other CSA services. Because in CSA you never know what you get or how long you're going to have it, Ms. Thomas does a straight line projection based on expenditures year to date. And I believe in next year's DSS budget, we have asked for some money up front because this always seems to occur at the end of the year, that we always have to come with our handout. So, are there any questions from anyone?
does anybody have any questions?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Can we do it like on a month-by-month basis instead of dropping the 200,000 right now? Can we do like 50,000 and see where you stand and then come back next meeting for 50?
I think we were already,
Ms. Thomas?
30,000 in the hole.
Okay.
So
So we're,
to do that, that would be fine.
And it's a variable.
Right.
It's a variable that we just can't always predict.
Sure.
I do know that the May, excuse me, I don't got to the best of these.
I understand.
The May draft agenda will include the summer placements for the next year.
Mhm.
So we will see some uptick in what those costs will look like.
Yes, ma'am.
We've projected as best we can, but it may look a little different.
And traditionally, not all of the Minnick students go to summer school, but most do. So, we'll see. I haven't received the paperwork for the FACT meeting yet, so I'll see what the school system submits.
And Mr. Bear does attend the CP's regularly and has an idea of what cases are coming for payment each month. So generally, they know what that looks like. And as Mr. Blankenbecker said, we have 19 students at Minnick right now, or 19 students in private day. That is one of our larger costs.
It's our largest single item in the CSA caseload.
So, Ms. Thomas, if you're 30 to the negative right now,
At the end of
50 would cover you, but it's,
It's empty. I think at the end of March, we were in the hole, a little over 30,000.
So,
Ms. Thomas does an excellent job of tracking these numbers and where they go. So and they'll tell you that, I'm not always the one that agrees with everything, but I'm always asking, are there other options, are there low-cost options? And 99.9% of the time, they have tried to come up with the best option for the local match and everything that we're dealing with. It's just, it is hard to predict.
So with the 50 brings them up, they'll have 20 left over. Will that be enough to get them through to the next
I don't
month?
think it will.
so what if we do 80?
80 would be, yes, it will get us
Okay.
through this month. Yes.
All right. Thank you.
And just know that this is a county budget. I know DSS has always handled it, but the 5 entities belong to this and are funding this CSA too.
What if we allocate the money and have it divvied out monthly based on the use?
They do that anyway now, based on, they only draw down that which they need out of the budget.
Okay.
So,
And that's a very good question, a very good point. Just going into next budget year, we have a pretty good idea of how many kids are going to be in those students. We have a pretty good idea of how many kids are going to be at some of the residential placements with the foster children, the placements through the CSB, through things that come through the court system, are variables that we try to project but can't always predict.
Does anybody else have any more questions? All right, I'll open the floor up for motion.
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we allocate $80,000 at this point, and then kind of see where we go from there.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Terry to allocate $80,000 to the CSA. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Cook. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote for Mr. Cook.
Aye.
So approved. Thank y'all.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and I apologize for not being Ms. Ayers.
I apologize for not looking up soon. The next item on our agenda is our proclamation for the National Day of Prayer. Mr. Baird?
yes, Mr. Chairman, you all had a request and requested that staff prepare a proclamation for you all to consider for the event occurring, I believe it's May 5th, I believe is the date. So that is before you for your all's consideration.
I will say, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Ms. Cummings put this together.
That's exactly what I was gonna say when you were done.
Yeah.
Ms. Cummings, as soon as you all did this at the last meeting, I think she had this prepared when she listened to the minutes, had it prepared the next day and back in Ms. Collins' desk to go on the agenda. So I do appreciate all the work she did on this.
And she did a really good job, and I'm not sure, do we need to read this and vote on it?
You could certainly take action to adopt it, or if you'd like to read the entire thing, you could. Or at that day, read it
Well,
at the presentation that day.
Yeah.
that's fine. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the National Day of Prayer proclamation.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Terry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Smith. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So adopted. And come out May the 5th at the Wythe Meeting Center, and you'll get to hear it read. Like I said, Ms. Cummings did a really good job putting this together for us. Next item on the agenda is our staff reports. Mr. Hankins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. You've been sent under separate email shortly before the meeting you've been sent under separate email shortly before the meeting, contract or a proposed agreement and pricing for the public safety radio system upgrades. The price on that is just over $1,017,000. Procom is our recommended provider. We received 3 bids for those. One was just for engineering. Procom's originally was for a lesser amount, but we negotiated in some things that increased the cost, and then there's been one increase based on increase in the cost of the equipment from the manufacturer. The third bid was $2.4 million, which was above our budget for this project. So, and Mr. Baer will talk more about the budget here a little later on. I know you haven't had time to fully read the contract, but if you would like to recommend proceeding with this pending final review by your attorney, I think that would be okay. Or if you want to hold off on it for another couple of weeks, we can do that as well.
Of course, the date of completion is give or take, going to be give or take a year.
It'll be right at a year. They're going to try to beat that, but with the supply chain issues, so much of this equipment is chip driven. So if they can get the chips and the manufacturer can make the equipment sooner, they're going to make every effort to try to install it and get it up and running faster. But that's something that's entirely out of our control and the vendor's control.
And there's, just going through the contract, is there no performance stipulation? That I didn't see one. I mean, I understand there's no 100% guarantee, but I don't see anything saying that it's going to be, 85% coverage of the county. Basically, what I'm saying is if we put this system in and it doesn't work in a quarter of the places in the county, I don't see anything in the contract that we can say, hey, we wasted $1 million.
We can ask them to insert the clause substantially in conformance with the RFP that they submitted. The RFP that they submitted was in excess of 95% coverage of the county, and they felt like they were conservative with that. The primary part of that 5% that's not covered is national forest. So they felt like this was their best effort to get coverage that we could depend on. But we can certainly add that clause back in that would say substantially in conformance with the proposal.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'll defer to Mr. Farthing. Does that make sense to you?
It does. You can do a referral to the RFP to say that, we'll install a system that covers up to 95% or whatever that number is going to be for coverage, radio coverage of the county. And that works with some reference to the RFP that says they're going to perform this way. This performance after installation, it will cover 95% or whatever.
I'm sorry, Mr. Smith.
No, I was gonna say, I was agreeing with you. With the RFP, they agreed, they put that in there to win the bid, right? So we need to hold them to that standard.
And the RFP shows their engineering, shows their basis for those calculations. There have been some minor changes that have improved that coverage, mainly with potential relocation of the Speedwell site.
So, I mean, that would be my only problem with it, so I guess Mr. Hankins needs to go back and see if you can get it updated or hash that out with him, but, I tell everybody when it comes to this radio, it reminds me of the Suncom phone. I bought that one time when they were in Whitfield. The only place that cell phone worked was in Whitfield. But they gave me a map showing it worked in Rurry Tree, but it didn't.
We'll bring you back a completed product at your next meeting.
Thank you, sir.
The next item is also an incomplete contract, and the sheriff's office has had the chance to review it. We still have some concern. Mr. Martin has given us a red line contract, but there are some things that we're not entirely comfortable with yet. We may get there, but don't have a fully completed product to give to you yet. One of the concerns that we have is Chief Deputy Klein got information from the court system last week that indicated that on every one of these civil penalties that will be assessed, that there will be court cost. So it'll be your civil penalty of $100 plus court cost of $76. None of us anticipated that was going to be the case when we passed this ordinance. So I think it's appropriate for us to take another couple of weeks to review that, make sure it's where we want it to be before we proceed with signing a contract that obligates us to using the equipment for a year, a minimum of a year. So if there's no issues with holding on to that contract, we're going to suggest some revisions and bring you back something that is a little more complete in 2 weeks. Just a few informational items. Rural Retreat Lake Lease has been signed. Chairman Vaught signed that, and it has been forwarded on to Richmond for the signatures of the Governor's Office, the Attorney General's Office, and Department of Wildlife Resources. We are advertising now and have received applications for Communications Director. I've let you all know that our Communications Director is leaving May 15th. Our first review started yesterday, so I've looked at the few applications we've received, and we'll be reaching out to those applicants to start screening and going through their qualifications. We have lost another dispatcher to a law enforcement career, so we are currently trying to find dispatchers. So if you know folks that are calm under pressure and handle stress well, and want to help out with our first responders, we'd certainly welcome the applications from those folks. We're expecting that we'll see Speedwell's new pumper tanker probably within the next week to 10 days. I think there's one item left on the punch list for that truck. Told you last month we expected the lead mines rock boat within 30 days. Something has changed on the manufacturer's side. They're now saying by July 1st, bless you. So we'll look to, we're hoping that we get the boat sooner. Obviously, we're entering the season where it's going to be handy to have that boat for rescues. And so we've impressed upon the manufacturer that it's important to get that one finished as quick as possible. You all know that Elizabeth Delp, our public information officer and grants writer, wrote a grant through EDA in support of tourism development activities through the Apex Center. That grant was not funded. The EDA ran out of money before they got to our application. And last time you authorized us to send out a letter to all of the localities in the transportation district, asking them to appoint their commission member to the Regional Improvement Commission. We've not received any submissions on those yet, but I know that the other localities have received that letter. We received a call from Senator Pillion's office today asking if there's anything that we need to help with that, and offering, of course, to be there when we have the initial meeting of the commission. glad to answer any questions that you've got or any suggestions you'd like to make.
Does anybody have anything for Mr. Hankins?
Mr. Hankins, I do have one thing. Any movement on the Max Meadows Fire Department?
I have not sent them the revised memorandum of agreement. There were a couple of things that we said we could agree to that we would share with them. But as Mr. Cook pointed out, a couple of errors on my part in that MOA. I've been going back through it just to make sure that it's right. I'll be getting that to them this week. And I'll meet with Chief Haywood and see what we can agree to.
Can you let us know when that's been sent to them?
I will.
Thanks, sir.
Does anybody else have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
On the Blue Line contract with the amount of the fines and stuff, I don't remember whether we discussed it or not, but did we ever discuss where that money was gonna go? Whether they was gonna come to us, come to the sheriff's office?
No, have
Between the
not
two?
finalized that whole discussion, and that is a good discussion to have. The sheriff, and he's not here, but he talked about, that been, one of the items he talked about has been, taking care of the school resource officers and items like that. So, I do think that is a discussion to be had as we finalize this contract. How we're going to split that, because this isn't the typical, the officers were paying tickets they're writing and things like that. So, and originally it wasn't going through the court system. This was going to be going to the company, the payment going to the company, and then the payments be coming back in. Ms. Gwen would have a column set up for that in her thing to track all the money that came in with that. And then my thought was we'd work with the sheriff's office on how that helps cover the school resource officer's budget and items like that.
Well, I was just thinking it might help cover some of the additional deputies too.
Does anybody else have anything for Mr. Hankins? All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Baird?
Yes, got a few action items on the report. Before I get on those, just an update on a couple of items of what we're working on. Thanks to all the citizens for their patience over the last 4 days as we have changed over to our new utility billing system. Staff started taking payments today. A representative from the company has been here for the last 2 days and here for tomorrow and maybe one more day. I don't remember. But nothing blew up this morning. That was the best news out of it. I was in there with them just before the meeting started. They were doing all their end-of-day activities and everything, and I did not hear any wailing or gnashing of teeth at that time. So this is obviously this is the first step with the new system of us doing the thing that many of us want to see, and that is going to the automated payments. In fact, when I was up there this morning, a gentleman came in with his check, and he said, that's the reason why I'm here is because I don't want to pay the 3% fee, so I bring my check in now, and so I'm excited about you all getting to the new system. So, baby steps, but we hope to have that in line, and I appreciate staff's focus on that, and I appreciate, you don't realize how much of with Ann and everyone tied up in learning that system, it takes the rest of the staff here covering the front and answering phones and trying to deal with highly stressful situations that they're usually not in because they don't know how to operate the water systems and things like that. So it has been a true team effort, and I appreciate everyone's effort on that. Second item, I think it was 10 o'clock this morning. This room was full of individuals with the county office building project. They are ready to get started on that. This was a pre-construction conference. Very impressed with the engineering firm or the construction firm that is coming in to do this work. And this pretty much doesn't exist in their world. Everything is pretty much an online type system and an online transmittal system, operator, everything there. A very good meeting. One of our challenges is going to be in a couple weeks we will be losing, or a week or so, we will be losing 18 or 20 parking spaces here for the construction time frame. So be working with all the departments, want to work with Mr. McCabe on emergency vehicles and any options we've got where we can locate them. Need to work with the sheriff's office on the big fire truck over there. If we have a location, we may be able to take it, just to try to free up as much parking in the other areas over there. But they walked around the site and everything is ready to get started on it, and we're glad to have that underway.
On the parking, and Ms. Ayers left, but you may work with her and try to get some of her employees to park somewhere else, so at least there's available spaces out here for citizens that have business to do here. Because I know quite a few of her, and I know parking is limited up here, but, you know, instead of vehicles sitting here all day while somebody's at work, if a citizen needs to come in here and pull a permit or pay the water bill or complain about Mr. Terry or whatever they're doing, you know.
And the company did ask for the closest municipal lot, which we told them, town of Wythe had some representatives here as well. They plan on all of their staff parking down in the lot across from the old courthouse over there, and coming into work. So they don't want them taking up any of, I said, the 4th Street area's got a whole lot of sheriff's department vehicles, and this one up here's got a whole lot of county staff on it, so they're gonna try to park there. So it will be tight. We've been there and done it before, but it's, there's more people here now, and it'll be tight over a year period or so. But glad to see that one moving forward. The Blue Star Engineering firm is actually on site this week. Everything's still progressing there. We've got some meetings lined up dealing with water, wastewater, and building inspection and all of that. So that is continuing and moving forward. So. All right, to the things that are on my report, the first thing is the Blue Star Rail Extension. I discussed this during, I believe, Buildings and Grounds Committee, but basically, we did not plan turnouts in our original rail extension running to the Lot 24. Blue Star and Norfolk and Southern have expressed an interest that they may have to put a runaround track up on this extension as well. And they have requested a change order. The change order is proposed here is $180,000 to go ahead and install these 2 rail turnouts. The price of this has been confirmed. Several of these turnouts were also already on the Blue Star property that they bid out, and our price is consistent with their price on that. And I would recommend the approval of change order number 1.
And do we have, is that in our board package?
It is. It's page 135.
Okay.
This is with STX Corporation.
So what exactly is a turnout? Is that where they
Yeah,
can
basically, we have a straight track going all the way in. Just one track
Yeah.
going in. What this is, it puts the switch in
oh, gotcha.
so that the switch is in place. Blue Star's concern is, in the future, daily, they will be bringing cars out and in and out, because they're going to have several tracks there. If we shut down for a day, which the contractor said, you know, we can come in later and put a switch in within a day. But the problem is Blue Star may be limited of their trains
Gotcha.
running in and out across that. So if we go ahead and put them in now with the anticipation that the extra rails will be needed, I still plan on working with Norfolk Southern. If they need that runaround, they need to be funding the rail runaround in the future.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Okay.
But it's basically 2 switches in place.
I'll open the floor up for a motion to approve change order number 1 for the Blue Star Rail Extension.
I'll make that motion.
Have a motion by Ms. Lawson. Do I have a second? Second. Have a second by Mr. Burnett. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote with Mr. Terry.
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
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 So approved.
Next item is an Austinville engineering amendment for the sewer rehab project. And I'll ask Don to step up here just to help out, but, basically, Don, we have approximately $19,000 remaining, is that correct?
Yeah, we have roughly 19,000 remaining in the project budget. The project's completed, basically. So we have 19,000 that's eligible that we can spend. So the amendment is for the engineering to update the PER. We've discussed it with the water committee that there's some favorable funding opportunities out there now from DEQ, and DEQ also has some ARPA money that they can administer to the municipalities. So it's just really for them to update the PER. We'll go over and we'll look at some of the other sewer lines that have not been replaced to date, and also some work at the wastewater treatment plant, the trickling filter enclosure that we had to pull out of the current contract because of the cost overrun. So we're not obligated to anything. It'll just be they'll update the PER, and they'll also submit the applications to DEQ for the funding, and DEQ will let us know if we will receive the funding and if there's any, if it's advantageous for us to do so. The last project, I think we've got 30% loan forgiveness on the Austinville project. On the current sanitary sewer evaluation rehab project, we got 50% principal forgiveness. So we're thinking that we'll be able to get favorable funding for this to kind of complete rehabbing that old system that was built back in the 40s. So that's all. That's what it was.
The plant, we'll take site visits or whatever again, but the plant, it looks tremendously better from what it was before. The site's really been cleaned up. The new items have gone in. We've replaced several of the lines over through there. This engineering agreement, since it's within the funded budget and what we have, recommend approving this $12,000, and then we can see if we can find additional funding for the work they find out of this. So I would request approval of change order number 1. It's on page 139 of your package.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve change order number 1 on the Austinville wastewater system improvement.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Smith. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Terry. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote with Mr. Cook.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
So approved.
Now, handed out in front of you, not on the agenda, is a proposal for amendment number 2. This is out of the same group of funds. Don, go ahead.
Yeah, this is a late addition. We received word from DEQ as part of the closeout of this project. As with most projects, you have to update the operation and maintenance manual for the treatment plant. This treatment plant, the O&M manual was basically written back in the 40s when it was put in. There's been permit modifications. It's been downsized. We've this last iteration of improvements that we did changed up the operation quite a bit as well. So I'd asked the engineer to give us a proposal to do the O&M manuals, which they would prepare, collect all the data that's been submitted on the projects, and rewrite the manual, and then provide the county with multiple copies, and also DEQ, and then that covers us through close out of our requirements through Virginia Revolving Loan Fund, which DEQ administers the funds.
So it's what's the amount, Mr. Barrett?
$6,510. I would request approval of amendment number 2, change order number 2, in the amount of $6,510.
All right, I'll open the floor up for that motion.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Terry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Horny. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote with Mr. Terry.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chris.
The next item on the agenda is Stortswell Don has bid out, or got 2 quotes for, generators. The lowest quote, that he has received is from Carter Machinery. These are under, cooperative Sourcewell procurement. And these are for the, pump station at lot 24.
The backup generator for the new pump station, we call it Progress Park South Pump Station, so it'll be serving the Blue Star facility. So we go through Sourcewell, their procurement, national procurement. So we received, 2 prices that are on the Sourcewell contract. One was Carter and one was from Fidelity. I don't know if you actually have the proposals in there, Stephen, but we received about a 30-some% discount through Carter Machinery for that piece of equipment. So, the other benefit of Carter is they do have the equipment built and they have it available. The other piece of that equipment pie is we have to have the automatic transfer switch, which is what transfers the power over in case of a power outage. That is the longer lead time of, 88 days. So if we, get that ordered pretty quick, we should have it in time, hopefully by September 1st. It's gonna be close, to have it, here and installed. So we want to get that in and be ready when Blue Star's ready, so.
Just recommend approval of the Carter Machinery to proceed.
Entertain a motion to approve the purchase order for Carter Machinery for the generator, I assume. Is it just a generator?
Just
Generator and automatic transfer switch.
Yes, transfer.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Horny. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Lawson. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Cook?
Aye.
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 Abstain.
Aye.
So approved.
Everything.
And I know generally we run a lot of these through Water Committee, but time is of the essence on all of these, and I appreciate y'all. On the Austinville, we really want to get that one wrapped up as quickly as possible, but then obviously we need to get these generators ordered and come in.
Right now, if it's low bid and in stock, you better jump on it.
Because they won't be there tomorrow.
Next item is to request board authorize the transfer of 24A and 24 to the JIDA and authorize the chairman to execute the deed.
Entertain a motion to authorize the transfer of lot 24A and 24B to the JIDA and authorize the chairman to execute the deed.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Terry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Lawson. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
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 So approved. It's not a retreat lake lease, but I'll be happy to do it. It's actually took less time, but I'm not gonna get on that soapbox.
Next item is Robinson Farmer Cox. This is a letter to you all and to me, basically establishing their service for the next year. Request that the board authorize staff and chairman to execute this document.
Entertain a motion to accept and authorize execution of the Robinson Farmer Cox and Associate document.
So moved.
Have a motion by Ms. Lawson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Terry. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 So approved.
The next is a letter to, I think Mr. Stone may have discussed a little bit of GASB 87 when he was here during this, but if you want any detailed information, ask Ms. Williams, don't ask me. But basically, this changes how you have to report primarily all leases in the county. So leases on copiers, I'm curious to see how it's going to affect leases on vehicles. The school system, I think, is going to probably have quite a few items that's under lease in the process. They've already sent us a form to start trying to build up all those leases and how they're reporting. But anyway, this is to authorize, hire their services to get us prepared, to meet the GASB 87 requirements. I recommend, in order to stay in compliance, execution of this agreement.
Entertain a motion to execute the GASB 87 agreement.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Smith. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Lawson. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So approved.
I believe that's everything I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, moving on to County Attorney, Mr. Farthing, do you have anything?
Mr. Chairman, I have nothing to report at this time. I've been working with staff on various contracts and issues going on, and Mr. Bear and Mr. Hankins have covered all those things that I've been working on lately, so I'm in good shape unless anyone has any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Farthing? All right, thank you, sir. Next item on the agenda is our fiscal year 2023 budget. Mr. Bear, turn it over to you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, got several items there. Number one is just, first of all, is the proposed expenditure budget that is presented to you for review. Obviously, we've had work sessions and we have been discussing this. Currently, where we stand on our budget is $141 million budget, 141,435,108. And that is an increase of 55.8 million above the FY22 budget. I think it's important just to give a little bit of an overview of that, to explain all of that for you on the public as well. But basically, of that $55 million increase, which is about a 65% increase, the school system accounts for $30 million of that increase. And that is without requesting any additional local operating funds. So most of that is coming from state and federal money. The budget includes the new middle school project, which we have already borrowed $12 million, and the rest of the construction funds that the school board has through ESSER and state funds and other are out there. Obviously, they're all dependent upon the final budget from the General Assembly. So that obviously takes out a large chunk of the increase. And these are increases only over last year's budget. The water department capital, a little less than $15 million, 14.7 million. The Lots Gap Tank project of 5.1 million, with 2.5 of that received so far in grant. The balance of that with an 80-20 split with the town assuming 80% of that responsibility. The Barrett Mill water line is in there for 3.9 million. The Olive Branch for 4.2 million. Both of those looking at potential funding with RD loan grant or with other funds that all these agencies have available now with DEQ and Water Revolving Fund and their ARPA funds that they have. And then line replacement budgeted of about $1 million of local funds. Wastewater capital improvements of 8.2 million, with the majority of that being the plant expansion of 7.7 million. Lead Mines Rescue Squad, as discussed, if we look at taking over the operation or assisting with the operations and paying for paid personnel with benefits to run 2 trucks for 2 24-hour shifts in that area, that's an additional $1 million into the expenditure budget. County capital projects of nearly 1.5. The big part of that is what we just discussed, the tower radio project for $1 million. Wastewater has about $531,000 increase, and that's primarily the anticipated additional operational expense with economic development. That'll all pay out depending on when plants come online and how much wastewater we have to treat from them and the cost it takes to do that. The consolidated dispatch is up about $450,000, and that's the long-discussed revision to the structure and the additional personnel for approved communication services for our police, fire, rescue, sheriff's department services. DSS is up $436,000, but that is only $30,000 increase in local funds that they requested for CSA. The balance of that is state and federal. And the last large item that shows up on our budget, and these are all in descending order of amounts, is the VIA Mount Rogers Regional Partnership. Their restructure and additional personnel adds about $238,000 to our budget, but that's all a pass-through funds. They pay us that out of their operational funds and their grants and things that they receive. So that's just an overview of all the items that are in the expenditure budget. And there was no questions on that. The next item on your report is the proposed revenue budget. The last page of the proposed revenue budget is showing that we are, right now, the expenditure budget exceeds our revenue budget by approximately 3.2, just under $3.2 million. About 400,000 of that is associated with deficits from the water department of revenue versus expenditures in the water side. The new rate structure will help revise that. You all have adopted that rate structure, so we will look at it, adding some additional funding into the budget for the revised rate structure there. Any questions on the revenue budget? And the next, in no particular order, I've got the proposed calendar revision for our public hearing dates. The personal property, since it is a year of reassessment, we cannot hold the public hearing for our real estate. I said personal property. We cannot hold the public hearing for our real estate on the same day that we're holding a public hearing on our budget. Asked that tonight we established a property rate amount to be advertised. Ms. Collins has it lined up to go into the paper this Saturday, so that is April 30th, allowing the 30-day time frame to do that. That would mean May 31st would be our public hearing on the tax levy. That is that's actually a fifth Tuesday. It's the week after your board meeting. We would have the public hearing on the real estate tax levy then, and then we would look at holding a public hearing on our school budget, our county budget, and our other tax levies, personal property and all of those at the June 14th meeting, and then county adoption of the budget either at June 30th meeting or if we do a recess meeting prior to that time frame to adopt the budget. So that takes us down to the notice of that has to go into the paper regarding the reassessment. The notice is shown. The increased value, as the commissioner talked about today, does show an increase of the real property value of 20.4%. As you know, we have the deficit of about $2.8 million on our budget. During our work sessions, we talked about a lowered tax rate. The lowered tax rate to come in basically relatively within 1% of where we are right now would be a rate of 45 cents per $100 of assessed value. Our work session, we discussed proposing and adopting a rate, decreasing it from 54 cents to 52 cents per $100, which would be an effective tax rate of 7 cents. And then at the bottom, we have to show the proposed total budget increase, and I've been indicated the proposed budget increase exceeds last year's by 65%. So, Mr. Chairman, I will turn it back over to you for discussion about establishing advertisement of a real estate tax rate.
I open the floor for discussion. Everybody's favorite topic, taxes.
And if you want to discuss personal property at the same time before you do that, Mr. Chairman, I can go into the personal property because we do know they're interrelated as well.
Well, you know, you went over the, the budget overview and, you know, the increase of $55 million. I mean, it sounds like a lot, but when you go down through there and look at, you know, of course, the largest majority is a school project, which, we've made a commitment to, the citizens to address those schools that haven't been renovated, remodeled. That's a large chunk. Our water and wastewater projects that we have out there are pretty much a necessity because we have accomplished growing the county workforce by a record-setting amount. You know, we hear all the time, young people need jobs, young people need jobs. Well, they're coming. Unfortunately, we gotta spend money to make money. It is what it is. You know, with that, I look at the Lead Mines Rescue Squad, what they're dealing with, what they're struggling with. Their call volume is not getting smaller. Emergency services ain't getting cheaper. You know, DSS, we've discussed that probably several times the past couple of years, and, you know, their increased caseload. Luckily, we've got that 85-15 match, and the county don't have to pick up 100% of it. So, you know, the $55.8 million increase, it sounds like a shocker, and you look at percentage-wise, it's increasing 65% over last year's budget. But what effect is that gonna have on the county as a whole? That's the way I look at it. And, you know, at 54 cents on real estate, and I've probably said this for several years now, and people will still argue with you, we were still the cheapest county in the area on real estate, by far. And instead of sticking with that 54, we worked on it, and we're talking about lowering it to 52. And I don't know about you gentlemen and ladies, but I've been watching other counties, and I haven't seen anybody talk about lowering theirs. They might do it, but I haven't seen it. So, do I like paying taxes? Absolutely not. But do I think it's fair to the citizens what we're asking from them? Yeah, and you're not gonna please everybody. But, you know, we're increasing the budget by 65%, but yet we're only increasing our revenue on the real estate tax side by 15.6%. I think that's a pretty good return on investment. That's my opinion.
I would recommend the 52 cents, in order to come up with a balanced budget, for advertisement purposes, and then obviously, you know, see where it goes from there.
Well, I'd like to advertise 5 cents, but you know what? God forbid Mr. Smith has to call for lead mines. I hope somebody show up.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with everything that Mr. Chairman has mentioned. But when you look at the lead mines rescue, if we just look at the public safety part of it, on that investment, I know we talked about a lot of infrastructure and the water and the wastewater, but when you look at public safety, their call volume's up. We've seen all the numbers, right? And then you're gonna introduce 2,500 more jobs, people coming into Wythe County or living in Wythe County, or a combination of both. We already see that the interstates can't handle the traffic that's on them now. So their call volume's just gonna increase. What that percentage is, none of us know. But we have to anticipate that that's gonna go up, because the traffic's not gonna get any lower, the congestion's gonna get worse. So if we can invest back into the public safety piece of it, regardless of what end of the county it's on, I mean, the traffic's gonna increase on the western side of the county too, so, Rural Retreat's gonna feel that as well. The town of Wytheville. So I think I'm like everybody else, nobody likes paying taxes. I don't. I think a lot of them is Gwen, but I didn't like writing that check.
It's actually her, I just get the bill.
Right. She takes her money, and, but I mean, that's just part of it. I think for what we're investing and what's coming to the county, I think 52 cents fair.
I agree.
Well, and another piece of it is, we don't control inflation. We don't control the housing market. We've all lived here at least, 2 years. For the ones that's been on the board for 2 years, we've been here. We can't control, and I don't mean this negatively, but we don't control people from northern states with much higher tax rates that have moved here and paid exorbitant amounts of money for property. That's what drives the market. I mean, if Mr. Farley can figure out how we can control that, we'll all retire.
We have a great place to live, I can't complain about it.
It's, but we do control the tax rate, and, that's what we're here to do.
And I'll just reiterate, gentlemen, this is only to advertise. We'll have to adopt later.
Are we dropping the vehicle tax rate also down to 222, or?
We ain't
We ain't got there yet.
Okay.
Does anybody else have anything on real estate? So I'll entertain do we need to do this separate or do all of them together?
I would go ahead and do this one separate to advertise the rate on it.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to authorize county staff to advertise a tax rate or real estate tax rate of 52 cents per hundred, a reduction of 2 cents for the upcoming fiscal year.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Smith. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Terry. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So approved. Now, personal property.
Personal property rate is currently set at $2.32. I've been working with Ms. Vaught. Her sources indicate that it is potential to see 25% increase in personal property values on vehicles. I prepared a calculation that I shared with you all. Basically, the total assessed values of personal property now is estimated at $320 million. If vehicles went up 20% in price, that would take it up to $369 million. That would mean that our revenue with the tax rate stayed the same, would go up from 7.4 million to 8.5 million. There's actually an article in the Roanoke Times this weekend where I believe Roanoke City or Roanoke County 1 that bills twice a year was talking about already seeing change, increase, because they bill twice a year, and so the payments that were due in June, they were already seeing this. The recommendation that is discussed is to advertise a rate of $2.22, which would be a 10-cent reduction on the current personal property tax rate.
And are we talking about a straight across the board reduction?
We are, yes.
Because I know we discussed,
We can look at trying to break all the vehicles out under that separate classification. Ms. Vaught has looked at that. A little bit easier said than done, because of the way the information comes in.
well, I appreciate the governor giving the localities option. However, I wish he'd done it back in January instead of a few weeks ago because of that.
Yeah, that's, I would like to see it, but it makes it too tight to get all of that done and figured out and put your values in. I think it's definitely a consideration for next year that we could look at doing that. But I'm looking at just across the board, so that means vehicles are definitely gonna go up in value, but other personal property that's probably not gonna see that increase in value will see a net tax deduction.
All right. So I'll entertain a motion to advertise, or are we gonna do personal property all over together?
Well, if you want to, the machinery and tools and merchants capital, we haven't changed in years, and I recommend leaving those the same, especially with our industries that have just located to our area and are located area based on machinery and tools rate that we currently have. If you want to make a motion to advertise for all three of these, Mr. Chairman, I do not see where that'd be any issue.
And set the public hearing for June the 14th.
Yes, sir.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to advertise the rates as presented for the fiscal year 2022-23 and for a public hearing to be held June the 14th at 6 p.m. Have a motion by Mr. Terry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Lawson. Is there any questions or discussion on that? I will say, I appreciate everybody's agreeing to at least advertise the 222 rate. I've thought the personal property's been too high since I've been on the board. Again, we can't control the vehicle market. Lord knows I wish I could, as many vehicles I own, but at least we can help citizens out by dropping it 10 cents. Does anybody else have anything on that? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? So approved.
Mr. Chairman, did we vote on the real estate to set the public hearing on the 30th? Was that part of that? Or the 31st?
I don't think we did, Mr. Smith. I apologize. Yeah, we just did the rates. Are you making a motion that?
Yes, sir. We'll have the public hearing on the 31st.
Have a motion by Mr. Smith to have the public hearing for the real estate tax levy on May 31st at 6 p.m.
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Terry. Is there any question or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I appreciate you, Mr. Smith.
Good eye.
You know what
You
they say
were.
about a blind squirrel.
Mr. Chairman, I do not, on the budget in general, obviously the expenditure budget, we're looking at June 14th for our advertisement of that. I have not scheduled a work session. We still have a few final details to go over and send some of those out. I think we could probably look at doing those on June 14th, or if we have to reset, not June 14th, at our May 10th, whatever that date is, our first Tuesday meeting in May, to go over those things. I know there's a few items that you all still need to review and look at. I think we are pretty close to finalizing all the numbers.
And Ms. Vaught, I know you're short-handed or down a person. How many people do you have in your total office?
Normally 5, including me.
normally
So right
five.
now it's 5 or 4.
So if we wanna look at that automobile, personal automobile separation, we'll try to let you know as soon as possible. 'Cause we definitely, I mean, we understand it's a chore to do it the first time and probably every other year, but, that might be something we discuss about.
Yeah, but we've been working on it a little bit, so. The big trucks, those are hard, to pull out.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Anything else on the budget, Mr. Barry?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
We do plan to have let's see here, I'm trying to make sure I have everything in my calendar. We plan to meet on June 15th, potentially, to review the public hearing comments, right? And then we need to,
Typically, yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Madam Vice Chair. I do request that you all adopt the revised calendar. Which page is that on, Martha?
169.
That has the dates that you all just established. Historically, we have scheduled the day after the public hearing for a meeting just to review any comments while they're fresh on everyone's mind. I think last year we had so few comments that we did not have that meeting. If that's not good for everyone, let me know, but that's the goal there.
Are you
Just
talking
to
about June the 3rd, or,
June 15th. Public hearing will be on June 14th.
okay,
And then we usually come back the next day while it's fresh on everyone's mind to go over the comments and any revisions or changes to the budget. And then that gives staff time to make those changes prior to the June 30th adoption.
Okay, gotcha.
Ms. Collins, well, I guess we need to take action to adopt the revised calendar.
If it's acceptable to everyone, yes.
I'll entertain a motion to adopt the revised budget calendar.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Cook, I have a second by Ms. Lawson. Is there any questions or discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? So adopted. Ms. Collins, will you email that out to everybody, and we'll cross our fingers that our email works? So we don't have to dig through this board package.
And the one item I didn't say is obviously, I like adopting a budget earlier. I like adopting the tax levy earlier. The Commissioner and Treasurer's Office like when we were able to adopt the tax levy earlier. All the factors between reassessment and everything else. But on the other side, with the General Assembly not adopting the budget, and I don't know when they're going to adopt.
That's what
their
I was getting
budget.
ready to say. I like the state to adopt a budget.
Yeah.
So,
I think June 14th is good. I talked to another county administrator. They're going to adopt, but they plan on holding another public hearing in July to amend their budget based on what the school's final, or what the state's final outcome is, with obviously the school's been the major one. So this gives us time. Hopefully we'll have a state budget and we'll have actual numbers to go in there.
well, and I shared with Mr. Bear, I've reached out to Delegate Campbell and Senator Pillion, and one said May-ish, one said middle of May. So,
That's better than what I've been getting, because in my treasurer's group, they're saying, with their contacts, they're saying the end of June, toward the end of June, before we actually have state.
maybe they're being optimistic.
Maybe they don't know next month is May.
All I got was a definite, it's not happening next week, I can
You got a
guarantee you
yes
that.
on the end of that.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, moving on to board reports, Buildings and Grounds Committee. I think it's Mr. Burnett.
Yes. Building and Grounds Committee met on April 19th, 2022. Makes following recommendations. Number one, the committee recommends rejecting bids received from all various county properties due to being over budget, and to rebid with modifications to the bid specifications to try to lower the cost.
All right, committee, it doesn't need a second. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote with Mr. Cook.
Aye.
So approved.
The second item was the committee recommended rebidding the trash collection and recycling center paving project. No bids were received on the first solicitation.
All right, coming from committee, it doesn't need a second. Is there any questions or discussion on that one?
Mr. Chairman, I will add, we are going to add 2 additional bid items to that to hopefully help attract additional bidders. One is Lead Mines Rescue Squad to the new addition that's been added to take from where the pavement ends now, run it all the way over to the end of the building in front of the 2 dock doors and allow for that. Based on where we are budgeted and based on prices right now, I recommend the Buildings and Grounds not going ahead and trying to pave any of the rest of that at this point in time. Just get that front area past the dock doors if that's acceptable to you all in the process. And then the second is the Ivanhoe Fire Department is in need of repaving and unfortunately is going to require on the southern side of the parking lot some demolition and recompaction of that parking lot. But recommend adding both of those in there and see if we can get more interest on those.
So on the Ivanhoe, Fire Department, excuse me, have they addressed the runoff, the water runoff down the access road behind? Because I think that may be part of the problem right there.
Same thing, sir.
Do not know if it's been addressed, but it needs to probably be looked at in the process, see if something can go in there and try to keep something up there. And the original parking lot is holding up a little better than the addition that they added. And I think that was probably added in the bingo era when they were having a lot of people there, and that area does need some work. But we'll look at that runoff.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions? All right, coming from committee, it doesn't need a second. We'll do a roll call vote with Mr. Terry.
Aye.
Aye. So approved. Anything else from the Buildings and Grounds Committee?
Nope, that's it.
All right, thank you, sir. Water Committee,
The Water Committee met on April 19th, 2022, and recommends accepting Bort's proposal for the Lot 1B Project Panel Sewer Extension Project.
all right, coming from committee, it doesn't need a second. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote with Mr. Cook.
Aye.
So approved. Anything else from the Water Committee?
I believe that washed it up.
Thank you, Mr.
First time
Horn.
I've ever heard you say that.
Board of Supervisors time, Mr. Cook.
I have nothing at this time, sir.
Mr. Burnett.
I had several residents ask me about looking at Ordinance 78-5, property tax on exemption for elderly. That was really last revised in '07. Try to streamline it to just do property value and age versus it includes income. And I read it, I couldn't understand it, so I figured regular people couldn't either. But I'd like to look at that if we could.
What was that, Grayson?
Ordinance 78-5, property tax exemption for elderly.
That's what we call age and income credit. Or she does, age credit, age disability credit. So what are they wanting to change those?
Matt, didn't I talk to you about that once before with one of the,
Yes, sir, you had a specific caller who
yeah,
asked questions regarding that ordinance.
and what was the issue with it?
I'd have to pull my notes up. It's been several months.
I'm trying to think, he was saying it was the time wasn't advertised long enough, so he missed the deadline or something.
That was the first,
exemption
issue,
altogether.
but he also had issues with the qualifications.
Right.
His property is well in excess of the basic qualification, the threshold for that.
And historically, this is actually a very good time, and I think Mr. Hankins, I've talked about this when this subject came up before. I think you said '07 was the last time, and that was the last time that there was actually a large increase in real estate value, and at that point in time, the board looked at changing some of those rates. There are some code requirements of the information that is required for the elderly and handicapped, but it would actually, it is an opportune time, we'll put it on the list to look at it. There's probably some thresholds that need to be raised up on that ordinance. Don't know that it'd be as easy as trying to eliminate the requirement of submitting the information, but the thresholds may be able to raise, and I think it'd be an appropriate time to do that.
Ms. Collins, will you email that ordinance up to us? Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Bird? Thank you. Ms. Lawson,
I have nothing at this time.
Mr. Smith,
I have several things, Mr. Chairman. Received a call today from a school board member who had been contacted by some citizens on Wythe Lane over in the Ivanhoe area. There's an issue with the bus. There's 15 kids that's walking from their residence through an open field or an open piece of property there behind the Dollar General to the Dollar General store to catch the bus, because the bus either refuses to go up Wythe Lane, or it's impossible for him to go up Wythe Lane, or it's too dangerous pulling out at the bottom of Wythe Lane due to the cliff on the east side of that road when you're pulling out. You know, kids walking from the residence down to Dollar General, to me, that's not safe, and we shouldn't be asking our residents' children to walk to catch the bus like that. So if we can reach out to Mr. Fowler and see if there's anything we can do to make it safe pulling out on 94 right there. I think there is a residence that lives at the end of that lane has agreed to let the buses turn there, which we all know who that is. Mr. McRoberts has, from my understanding, has agreed to let the bus turn up there, but due to the seriousness of pulling out into the traffic right there. And of course, I know the sheriff's department does a good job of monitoring the speed there. There's a lot of tickets wrote in that area due to the high speeds coming into that area. But we definitely, I mean, I wouldn't want my child walking to catch the bus down there. And, you know, at that time, the Dollar General's probably not open, so there's nobody there. There's no supervision there. So to me, that's unacceptable. And if we could do anything to help those residents out and those children to keep them safe, I think we need to. Second thing, Meadowview Lane, which is off of Grouse Ridge. I've had some residents reach out to look at possibly going through the revenue sharing process for that road. I think they see the nice road to the right when you go in, so they're asking for help there. So Mr. Barr, we can look at that. And then I know I asked this quite a bit about the wastewater project on Route 52. So with that, what are we looking for as timing?
Let me get with the engineer and get a time frame for you of what the timing would be. I've asked for the information about the pump station to get some information about it, but let me get with them what a schedule would be for design, environmental review, and all of those items, and then bidding and construction.
So that particular part of the project, that's just go down 52, that's not to come back over to 94?
The part that we originally talked about that's around $1 million right now is just the first phase of it to go down 52.
Okay.
The phase, and I may say these incorrectly, but phase 2, I believe, was the Longmeadow Subdivision, and I have just received an inquiry about the feasibility of that in there. And then phase 3 ran, what I'll say, up the valley to the 94 area.
Okay.
So you can do phase 3 without phase 2, but you got to have phase 1 to do any of it.
And the reason for my inquiring about it, I know the gentleman that's wanting to develop the land up the valley, so he's very interested in it. And then while I was talking to him on the way up here tonight, he was asking Because he's proceeding, he's met with Michelle, and, I'm assuming he's gonna come to the planning commission as well. Is there any talks of helping, since we're in such a need for developments to come about in the county due to the housing shortage, is there any talks of any help possibly of relaxing some of the ordinances and guidelines that they have to follow, or even some help putting roads in? Is there any talks like that?
Nothing in specific. We actually met with the developer one day this week, last week?
Wednesday last week, I think.
Last week. That is looking at our area, and wanted information about water capacity and sewer capacity and all that. Density, and like I talked about, we've got a small section in our ordinance that allows for townhouses and condo type things, or subdivision ordinance, not very in-depth, but, we might have some density issues for someone trying to subdivide with our current, we do require 100 foot on a state maintained road, but I believe it goes down to 85 feet if it's a new road, that is constructed, so, they were, from a developer's point of view, looking at our information, to see what they can do. We have not started anything of trying to offer incentives to developers on water and sewer. And as they were talking, most localities do not offer incentives on water and sewer. There may be some things with, some street things, or trying to do some of those projects. But we haven't gone there yet, and it'll probably be on a demand. The ordinance currently states developers are responsible for the construction.
Responsible for the construction, design, construction, and then basically turn it over to the county. What we should be looking at is capacity issues is something we'll have to be concerned with.
Mr. Smith, if I could steal you thunder for a second. They may reach out to Mount Rogers Planning District. They got that housing grant, and I cannot think of the name of it. But they're, I can't even remember how much money they got. It's a pretty good chunk. But, they're administering this program to bring housing to all the areas that they serve. And I don't know how many, I'm trying to remember our last meeting. I can't remember how many projects they've actually had get started. But just tell them to reach out there, because and I don't know what that pot of money can go to, but it may help on the building side or something.
Okay, I'll definitely let them know.
And any sources we come across, we'll keep all that information to help with it.
And he had mentioned if he started or established a HOA, I guess is what it's called, and there was requirements set by the landowner or the developer and the county on the right-of-ways and stuff like that, would that be something that's viable for the county? I told him I didn't.
I think it's something like that we can definitely look at.
Okay.
I will say there's absolutely not going to be any assistance from VDOT for any new road financial assistance from VDOT for any new road project, construction projects there.
Yeah, and I kind of led him that way, that they probably won't have anything. Cool, thank you. I've got 15 more items. Y'all good?
You don't get 5 minutes.
No. Last thing I got.
Public time, he only had 3
Yep.
minutes. Make sure the alarm went off yet?
I'll make it quick. So last item I got, I know we've talked about it quite a bit, and it kind of goes back to the taking care of our children, making sure they're safe. But the intersection of 52 and 94, I don't want to let this crosswalk go without keeping it in front of us. I know that we talked to Andy about it, but there's a lot of students that cross that road going to Food Country or to Burger Express, wherever they're going. We need to make sure that we keep the focus on that.
I think that's a critical intersection. I think it needs to be addressed. I don't know the cost. Let me look at it and see. I would recommend that we bring in an engineering firm to assist us with that. our previous county engineer looked at to start the process of, there's a safe routes to schools money that's out there. But it's very detailed, and I'll be honest with you, there's absolutely no way Mr. Kinser could take on that project right now with everything that we've got going on. Let me work with Matt, and we'll send out some proposals for engineering firms to give us some, proposals for safe routes to schools, scenarios there, and then have them help us work that through with the school system and everything to do that. Assuming the population is going to increase with this, that's a problem that needs to be taken care of sooner than later.
I agree.
We'll get some, we'll figure out some cost estimates and bring those back to you.
All right. Thanks, sir. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry. Stephen, on what he was talking about the crosswalk, do you remember what grants the town of Retreat did to get their crosswalks?
I do not.
I don't think it was safe routes to school, but you might reach out to Jason, that might be an option we could look at.
And I don't know if that would have been something under, what's the town, 599 type funding or something like that. It might be an option, but I'll ask him, because those have been successful.
All right, Mr. Horny.
I gave my 3 minutes away. I don't have any left.
You don't have any left?
How about throwing something on my side? I got a lot of stuff tonight.
Oh, gosh. Mr. Terry.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. 2 things. They're related but not related. The first one is the Wythe Grayson Regional Library. Just want to give you guys a quick update. Last year, I was a pretty big critic of where the library board was and the funding. I'm excited to say that starting on July 1, we will kick off a brand new accounting program, which will help tremendously with the financial records of the library system for the Wythe Grayson Regional Library. I know Mr. Bayer and his counterpart at Grayson are working to get this partnership a more equitable partnership. And our accounting software is going to allow that to happen. So I'm very pleased to report that they have made huge strides and we're headed in the right direction there. Other part of that is the actual Friends of the Fort Chisel Library. It come up in our meeting this past Thursday that Mr. Tony Stroop said that he has requested meetings with us as a board to discuss the Fort Chisel Library, which to the best of my knowledge, I'm not aware of Mr. Stroop reaching out to anyone asking for a meeting. And so we, as the library board, have put the Fort Chisel Library on the back burner because the Friends of the Library refused to hold up their end of the bargain by doing fundraising. So we have tabled that to the Friends of the Fort Chisel Library gets their act together and tries to move this project forward in a partnership that's equitable for everyone involved.
Mr. Barrett, nobody's reached out to me. Is anybody?
I have not received anything about it, and y'all know where I am, and I'm here, and my office number's here. I would expect if they were interested or had something lined up.
Well, the last conversation we had when they presented to the board, I believe, they had presented that there was numerous grant opportunities that the county would be eligible for if we bought that building. And I believe my last words to Mr. Stroop were to send that information to you. Have you gotten anything?
Do you all want me to reach out or just continue to wait for them to come back to us with some information?
Well, I mean, if they're telling another board that we're refusing to meet with them, me personally, and I don't know what the other board, I was waiting on them to provide the information they said they had, let us review it, and then sit back down with them. That was where I was at. I don't know where.
I'm on the same page, sir.
Yeah, so I know Tony had reached out, but it's been 2 months, Chip?
Right.
Mr. Byrne? He had sent us an email, but we never, he's, in the email, he said that he was waiting on representation from Grayson County
Yes.
and y'all's board.
From our board.
And we never did hear nothing else about it.
I mean, whatever y'all's direction is from Mr. Bear is fine with me. That's where I was at. I mean,
Yeah, I'm on the same page. Here's a piece of that puzzle that the public probably really doesn't know about. And I agree that Mr. Hale's, historical work with saving buildings and architectural and engineering records needs to be preserved. But I don't think they need to be preserved at the expense of the Wythe County taxpayer to provide a facility with a special room for those documents. And off of that, I'll jump off my soapbox, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sir.
is that all you have, Mr. Terry?
Yes, sir, it is.
I just have a couple of things. On your VDOT list, Mr. Bear, Gap of the Ridge Road, there's some washouts, and I know last time we met with Mr. Fowler, he had talked about doing some guardrail work down there, and I can't recall if those areas were where he was talking about the guardrail work, but I'm hoping that's the area that they're looking at, and that's why they haven't fixed it. But will you just, when you reach out to him, ask him about that, and, if it's not the area, there's a couple washout areas with deep drop-offs that need to be addressed. And my last thing is, tomorrow is Administrative Professional Day. We've got a lot of administrative professionals that keep this county running. You've seen one of them tonight, Ms. Collins. You know, that was a small example of what you do for us. Definitely thank you for everything you do for us. You know, Ms. Cummins, we've got, you know, a building full of administrative professionals. We certainly can't do our job. Stephen can't do his job. Matt can't do his job without these folks. So, definitely reach out to them and tell them thank you. One day doesn't feel sufficient. I know Martha just wants me to shut up so she can go home, so that's Were you agreeing with me?
She's saying thank you for shutting up so she can go home.
I'll add what you're saying. Ms. Collins has always helped us out in the process of organizing some administrative and professional recognition, and typically the Chamber of Commerce has an event that's going to tomorrow. We have opted to have an alternative Administrative Professionals Day. We did not feel that with the new system going live today, that we could afford to, typically we'll close down the office and send those people to lunch and everything and let them take, do the lunch. We couldn't shut down. Ms. Cummins has gone on vacation, and that leaves us short-staffed in the process. So we are appreciative, but we're going to delay our celebration for a week or so and do it then, and appreciate your all support of that.
All right, does anybody else have anything? Hearing nothing, we'll be adjourned.